At the risk of sounding like a grumpy old man, I haven't made one of these new VR games list videos in absolutely ages, because frankly, outside of a few genuinely fantastic games so far this year, Hitman, World of Assassination, Ghost Town, Midnight Walk, etc., there haven't been that many upcoming VR titles that it's felt worthwhile to scream and shout about during the first half of 2025. I have absolutely no idea how some VR creators are banging out a new VR games video every single week. Well, I do know how. These videos usually perform the best, so just make the same video every single week with a list of the same games every single week and a slightly different thumbnail. Upload, profit, simple. Anyway, we are halfway through the year and I thought it was worth laying out the 15 upcoming VR games that I am excited to get my hands on as 2025 marches onwards, and we're kicking things off with Into the Radius 2 on the Meta Quest platform. The game has been available on PC for almost a year at this point, and it's shaping up to be one of the best VR survival games available right now. It's a tense, replayable and genuinely difficult survival experience with deep mechanics and a rewarding gameplay loop, and it's still in active development. Allowing the Quest audience to join the party and start feeding back to the developers is a net positive and will hopefully shape the game into the top tier VR experience it's on track to become. You can jump in on Quest from May 21st. Next up, we have Out of Sight VR, a virtual reality port of a Flat game that's releasing on the same day from none other than Flat VR Studios, the team that has been pioneering high-quality VR mods for years and who has now turned their attention to official VR ports and cross-platform releases. Out of Sight VR is a horror adventure from the perspective of a child's teddy bear. Players take on the role of this cuddly companion as we guide our owner through a labyrinth of terrible things, avoiding the horrors that lurk in the shadows. If you're a fan of Little Nightmares or the classic Among the Sleep, then this should be on your radar. You can get your hands on this one starting May 22nd for PC and following at an undisclosed date for PSVR2 and Meta Quest. Fans of over-the-top gun-fu, blood-soaked arena brawlers rejoice because Hard Bullet is coming to the Quest platform on the 27th of May. This is my go-to letting off some steam game. It's blade and sorcery with guns, gore, and lots of ridiculous slow-motion takedowns. It feels a little overdone to explain the game this way at this point, but it really does feel like a John Wick simulator, even right down to the little details like the fact you can kill a man, or multiple men, with nothing more than a pencil. If you're looking for a story-driven experience, then this one won't necessarily be for you, as Hard Bullet currently relies on arena-style action and endless waves of enemies to keep its players entertained. Credit where credit is due, EA and Codemasters are pretty committed to bringing their titles to virtual reality. Every year without fail, we can count on the new F1 game having VR support, and that's more than we can say for most racing games and driving sims on the market these days, even if the VR modes included in these EA games are somewhat underbaked. F1 25 launches for PCVR users on the 30th of May, and it brings a full story campaign mode, a tie-in mode for the upcoming F1 movie, and all of the quick play modes you would come to expect from this franchise available to play in hopefully glorious virtual reality. Fingers crossed this implementation is better than 2023's WRC. Next up, we have Power Wash Simulator VR for Sociopaths. This is Wiped Clean, a VR crime scene cleaning game that tasks players with disposing of dead bodies, mopping up pools of blood, collecting evidence, and occasionally running away from serial killers who might still be lurking around the crime scene. The concept here is great, and as someone who's always wanted a Resident Evil Power Wash Simulator crossover, I am excited to clean up some more grisly environments in virtual reality. Honestly, how cool would it have been if Power Wash let us clean up the RPD or the Spencer Mansion? Instead, they made a SpongeBob crossover. That little guy literally lives under the sea. Why are we power washing anything down there? It's counterproductive. Wiped Clean is available for PCVR users from the 1st of June. Up next, we have the last game on this list that has a confirmed release date. Prison Boss Prohibition. This game throws players into the shoes of a prison yard shopkeeper. You need to smuggle prohibited items into your storefront, craft your own alcohol, roll your own cigarettes, and then try to offload them to prisoners for profit without getting caught by the guards. It's a cute little shopkeeping sim that lets players customize and grow their shop from a small, dilapidated box to a thriving empire. And for some reason, all the characters that you interact with are strange little egg people. I've never played a prison boss game. Is there a lore reason behind why everyone is an egg? I'd like to know. Answers in the comments below, please. Prison Boss Prohibition launches for Quest and PCVR on the 10th of July. On to the mystery games now, the games that are coming out at some point in 2025. Kicking us off is Deadly Delivery, the next game in a long line of Lethal Company clones. Except this one has been built from the ground up for VR, and honestly, I'm not tired of this genre of collect items in a weird location filled with traps and monsters with your friends games just yet. So when I say Lethal Company clone, I am being complimentary. Deadly Delivery wants to be the next viral multiplayer game, and it looks like it has all the right ingredients to pull that off. My only worry at this early stage is the lack of real horror. None of the creatures or encounters in this early trailer look very menacing or scary. So much of the chaotic joy in Repo and Lethal Company comes from how unpredictable and genuinely scary the monster encounters can be. Fingers crossed Deadly Delivery has some surprises up its sleeve in that department. Has the hype died down for Aces of Thunder? At one point this really felt like it might be the most highly anticipated new VR game for both PCVR and PSVR2 users, but that excitement seems to have mellowed somewhat after a long period of time passing without any release date confirmation in sight, and even now, after many influencers, including myself even though I hate that word, have played the game, we still don't know how far away from release we might be. I for one am still excited. Aces of Thunder is a harder game than I was anticipating. It's a less forgiving game for sure, one that saw me shot out of the air time and time again. It has a learning curve, and I'm keen to see what the full game has to offer in terms of mission structure and online PvP battles. I hope we get the full game this year, and I hope that the full game includes a tutorial, because the demo version I was given access to didn't have that, and I felt completely out of my depth for the first 2 hours or so. We're getting into the really juicy stuff now. These are the VR games I'm really looking forward to. First up, we have Gunman Contracts Standalone, a game that started its life as a couple of Half-Life Alyx mods but has now broken away from that game to become its own product and something a lot of VR users are very excited for. Gunman Contracts is a high-intensity action shooter that feels like you're playing through scenes of a movie where you're the hero. I'm trying really hard to not compare it to John Wick because I've already done that once in this video for a completely different game, but it's really hard to do when the gameplay on screen is literally the scene from John Wick where he's climbing the stairs in Paris. If you haven't played the Gunman Half-Life Alyx mods, I would urge you to do that immediately, and then you can join me as we wait patiently for this full game to release. Forefront looks like the most ambitious VR Battle Royale game to date, because not only is it dropping players into a huge, gorgeous open world map and challenging them to be the last one standing, it's also giving those players access to vehicles like jet skis, helicopters, quad bikes and jeeps, meaning the action here is set to be far more frantic, far more vertical, and far more varied than anything that's come before it. Population 1 laid the groundwork for VR Battle Royales. Contractors Showdown refined it and gave us a more grounded, realistic feeling experience. And now Forefront is stepping this up another few notches. This also comes from the fantastic team behind the excellent Breachers, so I already know the mechanics and all the gunplay are going to be immaculate. My only worry here is the same worry I have for all VR multiplayer only online games. I just hope they can keep the servers full and the players engaged way past the initial launch window. Coming up next, we have my most highly anticipated VR horror game of the year, and a game that left a great impression on me from the moment I started playing it at Gamescom last summer. This is Memoriam, a VR love letter to Dead Space, Doom, Event Horizon and The Thing from the brand new Patient 8 Games studio. Memoriam feels like the best bits of all the franchises I just mentioned. It's gory, scary, action-packed sci-fi horror through and through, but it probably feels closest to Dead Space thanks to the sci-fi setting, the enemy designs, and a few systems and features that have been lovingly ripped straight from that series and rebuilt from the ground up for a VR audience. The team at Patient 8 Games wear their inspirations proudly for all to see, and the end result is shaping up to be a game that can stand on its own 2 feet, whilst also reminding players of all the things they loved about those other franchises. It's ultimately a great way to win users over to a new world and a new IP. I have never played the flat version of Robo Quest, but the more I see of this VR port from the team at Flat to VR, the more I'm excited to jump in. It seems to tick all the boxes for me. It's very fast paced, it's action packed, you can blast robots into hundreds of tiny little pieces, and it's replayable because it's a roguelike. And before you all moan about this genre being oversaturated in VR, I will say that the constant stream of VR roguelikes seems to have dried up somewhat recently. I'm actually ready for a new one that's high quality, and Robo Quest VR looks like it's exactly that. I don't know much more about the game other than the fact that its flat screen counterpart is very popular. It has almost 20,000 ratings on Steam, whilst sitting on an overwhelmingly positive review score. If that isn't a good candidate for a flat to VR port, then I really don't know what is. A Star Wars pod racing game that I can play in VR? Yes. All of my dreams are finally coming true. Why has no one attempted to make this exact game before now? I cannot wait to sit behind the controls of my very own pod racer, blasting along at insanely high speeds across the deserts of Tatooine. This could be the most immersive VR racing game ever. Wait, what? What do you mean it's a third-person perspective mixed reality racing game? Why? Why would you do this? The answer was staring you right in the face, and you decided to do the complete opposite thing. All jokes aside, I am still very excited to get my hands on Star Wars Beyond Victory. The team behind this title have delivered 2 very strong VR Star Wars games previously, and I have been a huge fan of most mixed reality experiences I've played on the Quest 3 to date. It just feels like such a strange choice when VR pod racing was right there. One of my favourite VR games from 2024 is getting a fancy new makeover this year when it releases for PCVR. Dungeons of Eternity is a surprisingly deep and surprisingly addictive co-op dungeon crawler that blew past all my expectations when it released for the Quest. And to be honest, one of the only aspects that I feel needed any kind of overhaul were the visuals. And that's exactly what we're getting here with the PCVR release. We have new lighting, higher resolution textures, particle effects, dynamic shadows, and the game just looks so much better because of all these upgrades. This looks to be the definitive way to experience this game's loot-grabbing adventure, and I'm just really glad that it will soon have a brand new audience of players. Dungeons of Eternity is one of those VR games that should have had way more love and attention at launch. So fingers crossed, these shiny new versions give it the spotlight that it genuinely deserves, because this really is one of the very best co-op VR games on the market right now. So at the time of writing and recording this video, Zombie Army VR has just decided to delay itself by a month. So the new release date for this game is June 12th, 2025. Originally, when I sat down to record this video, we were 2 days away from release, and this game was way earlier in the video, but I've just had to re-record this bit because of a last-minute delay. Now, despite having some reservations after walking away from my Gamescom demo, I am still very excited for Zombie Army VR. What I played was fun. It wasn't much deeper than that, and there were a few UI choices that felt somewhat stuck in the past, but popping heads off of zombie hordes, ploughing through waves of the undead with authentic World War II era weapons, and occasionally witnessing some over-the-top slow-motion X-ray kills was a blast in VR, and I think most players who go in knowing they're in for an arcadey good time will walk away pleased with the result, particularly those who choose to play the co-op aspect, as I truly believe this is where the game will shine the brightest. The Zombie Army games have never taken themselves too seriously, and they've always been best experienced with friends, and I imagine Zombie Army VR will be no different. Fingers crossed there are no more delays, and we can finally get hold of this one next month on the 12th of June. And that's everything for today's video. Let me know down in the comments below which of these games you're excited for, or just let me know if there's any other games I've missed that aren't on this list that you are excited for. Hopefully you've enjoyed. If you have, please do leave a like, leave a comment, hit subscribe and all that good stuff, and I'll see you soon for another one. Take care guys, see you later.